So right off the bat here, just want to put a big disclaimer on this video before I get too far into it. I want you guys to make your own assessments of the leaks or evidence of things. Whatever I talk about in these videos, like, make your own assessment, make your own judgment, and decide for yourself whether or not you want to, believe a leak or, look at some evidence for a character and say, yeah, I think that does actually, weigh into the character. It makes them more likely to probably be a character in the next Smash game, or, whatever it is. I just want you to be, judgmental about it. Look at it, weigh the pros and cons, decide for yourself. I want to give an unbiased look at, any leaks or evidence about a character, but today, I do want to talk about this one leak. It's more like evidence for a character that's a little controversial, that a decent amount of people have written off for one reason or another, and I'll get into that. I'll explain why some people are saying, this is nothing. But I don't want to be known as someone who just, goes over any old leak. I'm not going to pull something off the internet that I don't think has some merit to it. And this evidence that has been found, I think has some merit to it. And the character that it's about is a character I think has a good shot in Smash anyway, and I wanted to make a video about that character, so I might as well, take this evidence, do a video about that, and then I'll get into why else I think the character is really likely. But again, a lot of people have written this off, aren't looking at it, or, for one reason or another. So the character that it's about is Waddle Dee from the Kirby series, or Bandana Dee. He's kind of like the Captain Toad to Toad. It's just a more unique or specific version of a generic character from that series. But this leak, again, it's really more evidence that was found. Is up in the air. It's something that, again, a lot of people have written off. Basically, it comes from a rather biased source, so people, I think, are really quick to write it off. But I think there's some merit here. I think there's something here to it, so I want to talk about it. Basically, it's about amiibo data that was found for Yoshi's Woolly World, or Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World for 3DS. I guess this guy, again, this is the biased source, Memory Man 3. I don't know that much about him. I just know that when this was brought up to people, everybody was really quick to be like, oh, that guy, write that information off. That's can't possibly actually be something. I guess he's just a really, really obsessive Daisy fan and really, really wanted Daisy to get into the next Smash game. But I will say off the bat that the most obsessed fans are also the ones that dig the deepest. So, he may have found something here. So how did this Daisy fan find something with Waddle Dee? And what does that have to do with Yoshi's Woolly World for 3DS? So basically, in Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World 3DS, you can use amiibo figures for costumes for Yarn Yoshi. I think you can use it in the Wii U version too, but specifically this was found in the 3DS version. This guy, Memory Man 3, I guess, data mined, or had someone data mined. Somehow he looked at the data for that game, and he found that the amiibo for Daisy was listed in a certain way that was different than you'd expect. Basically, so amiibos that had multiple versions of the same character, such as Mario. So Mario has the Super Mario amiibo, it has a Smash Mario amiibo, and it has like the Wedding Mario amiibo. It has multiple amiibos for it. Those style amiibos, their data was listed a certain way in the game. And amiibos that only had one version of their amiibo, like Waluigi or Boo, they were listed a different way. I guess there was like a patch, and what it did was it made Daisy's amiibo be listed as if it has multiple amiibos. So now that we have Daisy in Smash, it kind of seems likely that the game was just, preparing for that. It was just getting ready for the fact that Daisy's going to have more amiibos coming down the line. So there was one other character who had data in a similar way, and that character was the Waddle Dee amiibo. So why would this fan of Daisy say that Waddle Dee also had data like that. This person isn't obsessed with Daisy and Waddle Dee, they're obsessed with Daisy. So they were kind of just digging for any information that might show that Daisy might be in Smash, which, again, a lot of people write off, but there was no reason for them to also say Waddle Dee. So apparently people looked into this a little bit and said, oh, it's just a glitch. All the characters were supposed to have data like that. And these two it just glitched in that patch or something like that. Or maybe they patched it further. I mean, I can't data mine, so I haven't been able to, go into the game, look at it, and do this for myself. So I'm relying on what other people have said here. But other people have basically said, like, oh, it's probably just a glitch. I don't want to write it off completely just because the source is really biased. Especially now that Daisy is in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and Waluigi isn't. If this had said Waluigi has data for future amiibos and Daisy doesn't, and then, we got Daisy and Smash and not Waluigi, then it would be like, okay, it was nothing. It was a glitch. But we now have reason to believe Daisy is going to get a Super Smash Bros. Ultimate amiibo, so there's reason to believe that back then, they were preparing for it. And this game also, it used the Corrin amiibo eventually, and that wasn't out yet at the time. I think the Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World came out in, I want to say, January 2017, and for whatever reason, the Smash amiibos took forever. The Corrin one didn't come out until like June 2017. Don't quote me on the exact dates for those. I think it was like that. It was definitely, the 3DS game first, and then the Corrin amiibo. So they at least were talking to the Smash team, which we now know has been working on Smash Bros. Ultimate, and knowing what amiibos, what future amiibos are going to come out, and getting them prepared for that, for usability with that game. And also, so if, let's say at E3, Waddle Dee and Ridley got revealed, and Daisy didn't. And then I think people would have looked at this amiibo data and been like, oh, this Memory Man 3, he's just obsessed with Daisy. That amiibo data didn't have anything to do with it. Waddle Dee was always just likely. And I agree, Waddle Dee is likely. So, I think this is just a little bit more evidence. It would have been, shoe on the other foot, Waddle Dee was revealed and not Daisy. And then, further down the line, we find out Daisy actually is in the game. I would probably be writing this off too as this is just an obsessed fan. But the fact that the Daisy piece is the piece that we know of, and Waddle Dee just seems likely anyway, I really want to look at this. I'm taking this and at least giving it a little bit of credit. So again, make your own assessment. Some people are saying this is nothing. Other people, like myself, are saying, there could be something here. So that aside, I just also want to talk about why I think Waddle Dee is likely, despite any sort of leak or evidence towards him. Basically, I think a lot of the characters that are going to get in this game are going to be ballot choices. And I know, or, just go on the internet, look around. Waddle Dee is a very popular character. Bandana Dee is, or, he has a pretty big following on the internet for being a Smash character. He's also recently kind of become the fourth main Kirby character. I mean, the Kirby amiibo line, it's Kirby, Meta Knight, King Dedede, and Waddle Dee. Those are the main Kirby characters. And who do we have in Smash? We have 3 of them, and not the other guy. And he's really popular in Japan and the West. So I don't see any reason why, in the ballot, he probably didn't score really, really high. I think some people kind of write off. So there's this thing when you talk about Smash Brothers that sometimes gets brought up where people talk about Sakurai's bias. And it can kind of be a double-edged sword here in Waddle Dee's case. So Sakurai's bias is basically just that games that he's worked on or series that he likes tend to get more attention. And there can be a reason for this too. So like Sakurai worked on Kid Icarus Uprising. So if you notice in Smash, Kid Icarus has a lot of assets. There's a lot of trophies and enemies and Smash Run and stuff from Kid Icarus. Part of this might be that Sakurai, worked on that series and just favors it in some way. That's a Sakurai bias. But another thing is that, Sakurai's studio, the studio, that's working on Smash and everything, might just have those assets available to them. So if they want to use a character, it's right there ready to go. And I know, so for third-party characters and any assets or stages or whatever they want to do with a third-party character, there's some negotiations there. They got to talk to the company. Even something like Pokemon, they got to talk to the Pokemon company for how they need to display those characters. I know there was some issues with like Pokemon characters being different colors, or Sonic being a different color, or Pac-Man being a different color. Those companies don't like that happening. So when they did the alternate costumes for those characters, like Sonic and Pac-Man wear like things on their hands and stuff. So Sakurai doesn't have complete leeway with obviously third-party characters. Now Nintendo characters, he has a lot more. But even still, if Sakurai wants to, do something from, say, the Zelda series, he might have free reign to do whatever he wants, take any character, do, anything from a Zelda game, but he might not have it available to him. He might be working in, let's say the studio in Kyoto, Japan, and it's, there's a studio in Tokyo that did the Zelda games, and to get, say like the way that Girahim moves in Skyward Sword specifically for his assist trophy, Sakurai might need to call them up, and there might be a little bit of distance there that needs to happen. Whereas if he wants to take something from Kid Icarus Uprising, he can just go, oh yeah, didn't so and so work on that? Isn't it on that computer? Let's just take it off, throw it in Smash. It's just very simple. So for things like Kirby, again, a game Sakurai owns, works on, he created, he can take basically anything from it. So that said, there's some bias. So why isn't Waddle Dee in Smash already? Well, like I said, double-edged sword here with Sakurai bias. I think there's also the possibility that Sakurai doesn't want to add like too many characters from his own series because he might feel like he's favoring it, and maybe that'll upset fans. But I think after the Smash ballot, I believe Waddle Dee is going to be pretty high up there for who people are asking for. So it's likely that Sakurai will choose him this time and not feel like he's being biased. He's taking something from his own game. There's another bit of that too. So Waddle Dee kind of became, like I said, the fourth main Kirby character, and that happened pretty recently. So Sakurai hasn't been directly involved in a lot of the Kirby games lately. He kind of just produces them or sits back and lets other people, use his characters, make his game. But I'm sure, he oversees it. I'm sure he, approves of things and stuff like that. But he hasn't really been the main guy making the Kirby series since Waddle Dee got really popular. So some people think, maybe he, for whatever reason, has some like grudge against Waddle Dee being popular now, or like, I didn't make those games where he's popular, I don't want to use him. I don't see Sakurai doing that, but some people talk about it. So another thing just to say about Waddle Dee, and some people think he's not likely for this reason, but I think it's a dumb reason to talk about, really, but I'll go over it, is that he's a generic enemy, or he was a generic enemy. So people kind of look at this very similarly to how they look at Toad, that Toad's a generic enemy, or Toad's not an enemy, but a generic character in the Mario games. So, why would that be a playable character? But Toad and Waddle Dee have both, in recent years become playable characters in the games. Especially Toad with Captain Toad. And I'll leave all the Toad stuff for another time, but it's very similar here. The way that Captain Toad exists and Bandana Dee exists, there's these unique versions of these characters that seem more like playable fighters, where they're coming from, a generic species of character in that game series. And on the Toad thing, final note on the Toad thing, so Toad is part of Daisy and Peach's, moveset still. Seems more animated. So I think there's still a possibility that Captain Toad's in there somewhere. But this transitions well into another thing in favor of Waddle Dee. While Toad is, technically in the game in another character's moveset, so if Captain Toad isn't, Sakurai still kind of threw a bone to those Toad fans. Waddle Dee seems to be completely taken out of King Dedede's moveset. When King Dedede first showed up in Brawl in Smash, he threw Waddle Dee's and Gordo's. Later on, in Smash 4, they switched it to just Gordo's. But he still had Waddle Dee's carrying him in for his intro. And originally, his final Smash was a bunch of Waddle Dee's. So Waddle Dee appears to be totally gone from King Dedede's moveset as far as we can see in Ultimate. King Dedede has a new final smash where he's masked Dedede, and even there, in the background, in what that is actually from the Kirby games, Waddle Dee is in the background, and Sakurai is a stickler for detail. So, I mean, I was just looking at the Ridley costumes, and I mean, it's crazy what each of those Ridley costumes is like an homage to, Ridley from the Super Metroid box art cover. It's Ridley from Prime. It's, Meta Ridley. It's crazy, all the Ridleys they homaged in those costumes. So again, Sakurai's a stickler for detail. So we've seen Dedede's final smash, and in the game that's actually from, in the background, Waddle Dee is he's the audience. He's watching it, and from the final smash, there's no Waddle Dee. So why take Waddle Dee out of every aspect of King Dedede? We haven't seen his intro. We haven't seen him walk in, which usually is carried by like 4 Waddle Dees. So, why would you take him out of everything unless he's a playable character and you want to make that playable character uniquely its own? So another thing just in Waddle Dee's favor, he's got relevancy going for him. He's pretty relevant. Like I said, he's got an amiibo that's fairly new. He's in the newer Kirby games as sort of the 4th guy. But he's also a spear user. So this is, a unique moveset potential here. Much in the way that I thought like a samurai character or a gunslinger character. We don't really have like a cowboy or samurai. Would be pretty unique. A spear user is pretty unique too. And Crystal, who was a possible spear user, is assist trophy. So we know that one's out. So if you wanted to just have a unique moveset with a spear, Bandana Dee uses a spear. He also sometimes uses a parasol, which, is a pretty big part of the Kirby games, so that would be cool to see that too. I just think there's definitely a good moveset potential here for a unique character. And then I guess one final note here, and this is, kind of out there theory, but I think it's cool. It was just neat, and I heard it. So there's that big splash art of it's like every single character, and it's this drawing, it's really long, every single character, and they added in, so they showed it at E3 when they said everyone is here, they showed that big wall scroll, but then later they added in Ridley and Daisy after they got revealed. So people are thinking they're going to add in more characters as they come in. That seems obvious. Yeah, of course they're going to do that. But there's one thing that's really interesting. There's Olimar in that scroll is the Pikmin, and the Pikmin are carrying Mr. Saturn. Now, Mr. Saturn isn't a playable character, he's an item. But somebody proposed this theory, I just think it's cool, that Mr. Saturn could be replaced with Waddle Dee when he gets revealed, because Waddle Dee was sort of an item, like King Dedede threw him. So I just thought that was really cool. I just want to tack that on there. So I guess I'll just end this video with, asking you, do you think that piece of leaked evidence it's not even really a leak, that piece of amiibo data has anything to do with Waddle Dee's chances? Do you think it points to the fact that Waddle Dee is probably going to get an amiibo soon, and I can't think of any other game that would have been in the foreseeable future with Yoshi's Woolly World coming out, or when Yoshi's Woolly World came out with Smash coming out, that would be for Waddle Dee? What would give him a second amiibo? I think the only logical answer is Smash, and we already know that the one other amiibo that had, that it's going to have multiple different amiibos that work with it was Daisy, who will be getting a Smash amiibo. Do you think that has something? I kind of do, regardless of if it's from a biased source or somebody who's really obsessed with the character. I still say the most obsessed people dig the deepest. So do you think that has something? And then, that aside, do you think Waddle Dee has a good chance in Smash? Because I think even without that, Waddle Dee is, probably one of the easily top 10, maybe top 5 most likely characters right now. Leave your comments below, subscribe, and until next time, have a good one.